And good morning, everybody from the Morning Spark Show. We had a special show for you today. Today, I am meeting with John Sierra. We'll bring him on real quick. And the reason we're doing this is so many of you have actually been asking us questions. We've noticed that, especially with the website company, a lot of you have been raising your hands and going, Grant, Spark Sites team, what the heck is going on with marketing? Now, if you've been around for a minute, you know that we do not bill ourselves as a marketing company, not in the least. In fact, we know that we have a lot of respect for marketing. I myself do a lot of messaging coaching because I'm a wordsmith, but we brought John on because John has the eye. In fact, anytime a client says, I need an upgrade in my brand, I need an upgrade in my design, help me out, we call John Sierra because this guy is the deal. Now, a quick background on John Sierra. You can check him out at sierracreative.com. We'll put that up on the screen or something later. But John's background is actually kind of interesting, and I'm going to bring him on the show to talk about it a little bit. But I just have to say this. You're getting access to today and can ask your questions, submit them in the comments wherever you're at, YouTube or wherever you're at on Facebook. Submit your questions as they come, and we'll try to get these. Ask anything of a graphic designer working on brand and logo and what's kind of going on with that. But before any of that, you just have to know this guy's an Addy-Award-Winning designer. This guy's phenomenal. And by Addy-Award-Winning, this is like the national campaign for people with a design eye. He's dealt with this huge campaign with Farmers Credit Union or something. We'll ask him about it in a quick second. But I just want you to get your questions ready, get your logos ready. No, we're not going to dog your logos on screen, but we will go through a case study so that you can be looking at your own logo through that lens. And without further ado, let's bring on John Sierra. What's up, man? Thanks for being here, dude.
What up? It's so good to be on here, man. Thank you, Grant. I love you and you love your team, man. Always a pleasure to have conversations with you, man. And thanks for bringing me in on your audience. Hey to everyone who's watching, I'm looking forward to our conversation, man. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Hey, so I was going through notes. So I have so many. I keep notes on like everything in Evernote, which is like you remember forever. And in prep for the show, I went back through notes and I found a note from like 2016 or 2017 when you and I were talking about like next steps for the business down in Catapult, man. So I was looking at that and I was feeling really nostalgic. That was super fun. So before we jump into like what's going on in visual trends for logos and brands today, which we'll touch on, a little bit about you. So for those watching, I promised when I first met John, I didn't meet him actually. When I first saw John, became aware of John, he was on stage at Without Walls, aka Free Life Chapel. So was it Free Life?
Yeah, Free Life Chapel. Yeah.
So I just moved to town and I was looking for a church at the time, and I went over there, and there's this dude with hair like you see in the screen. He was put together like you see this guy's put together. He puts himself together like an entertainer, like a designer, and he was doing worship, and it was awesome. And then flash forward a bunch of years, I think we first encountered each other back at Catapult when you were doing graphic design. And for those who pop in or watch the show later, we have a lot of background that we have parallel in the church and our journey spiritually. But we'll actually talk about that another time because I promised y'all to talk about marketing and messaging. So I do want everyone to hear though, your world of graphic design did not start after church. In fact, if anything, you've been working with graphic design long before that.
I did. I fell in love with graphic design and branding, and even before what I knew branding to be or really understood the concept in high school. I was in an art class. I was also in a graphic design class. I was and learning my chops in Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator and Flash at the time.
What year was that? Ish. What year was that?
I was in 99 through 2003.
All right.
So in that class, like I said, developed my chops, learned how to navigate Photoshop. But then what I used it for is to brand a backyard wrestling league.
This is what I wanted everybody to hear, a backyard wrestling league.
Yeah. So at the time, I was a super nerd and still am to this day and geek out on wrestling in general. But I formed a backyard wrestling league on a trampoline with our own handheld cameras, and I was commenting. We were developing our own costumes. We had our own website, and this was,
You don't
like I
have
said, in
photos of
99,
costumes, do you?
2000. I have
Do
videos,
you
in
have photos
fact.
of costumes? What'd you say?
I said I have videos.
Oh my
I
gosh.
have videos, dude. I could open up the wheel right now.
You
I got
better
stuff
share
in
this.
Dropbox.
I'm gonna if you share this, I promise to splice them into the show.
All right, yeah, I got you. I got
Yeah,
you. Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So you
Well,
had
that
this
was my
league going. Like, did you guys get hurt?
all the time. In fact, to this day, I have an injury in my tooth that I've had to deal with for years on. That I was on a trampoline, and this was not even recorded. Sadly enough, we were practicing, and I went in, and all of this is obviously staged and choreographed, so we all know what we're doing. But I went in to spear somebody, which is just like a frontward tackle, running frontward tackle. So I go to run in, and the guy pushes up his knees, which end up pushing my bottom teeth
What?
inward, my two bottom teeth
Holy
inward.
cow.
Ended up years later having to get implants and all that kind of stuff. But man,
You have
that put an
implants?
end.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, for the bottom teeth. So that ended the wrestling league really quick because my parents couldn't afford the dentist bill.
Oh my.
but but for as long as we lasted, it was a great run. Like I said,
But how did
it
that
was
lead to like design?
yeah. So I ended up designing the promo cards for everything, designing our logos for the events that we were having, kind of like, you know, the bowl of our events, the
Yeah.
WrestleManias of our events. And so I designed logos in that space and just fell in love with visual that way. And then kind of started to other brands that I noticed that I connected with. You know, obviously in high school and Starbucks and, you know, all the big brands that we
Yeah.
know today, but learning how they brought their products to market and realize their brand, just kind of continued the conversation. And then out of high school, I got a job with my dad designing for him and his business consultancy. He was
Oh, interesting.
business growth and management moving forward and training, and so he needed presentations, and so I kind of got my feet wet into designing for businesses at large, and then little by little through relationship growth, even connections through the church, I started to build a bulk of business. So on the side, uh, while I was worship leading, because right now, fast forward to 2004, when I was in Lakeland, I was going to school Southeastern
Yeah.
and working as a worship leader at Without Walls at the time, and also doing graphic design for them on the side. So I would do graphic design, do the worship leading, and then try to manage business as a part-time level at a part-time level on the side
Sure.
for a little while. And then fast forward 2016, when I decided to go full time in the business, and um, left the church and went full time. Ended up at Catapult. Um, Grew my business from there. Ended up with two designers supporting me and supporting the business moving forward. Have
Oh, I remember
had
this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
worked with a lot of great companies in the area, from America to
Ag
Publix to
America, that was your
Crispers.
national campaign, right?
Yeah, that's the one that I received the national Addy-Award, which gratefully it was one that opened up a lot of doors and has continued to this day,
Yeah.
been a great tool to open up conversations and to go to start up business. It's been great. It's been
Yeah.
opening many doors in the future for sure. So fast
So with the
forward,
oh, go ahead.
go. No. I was just
No, I
gonna
was just
say
gonna
now.
ask with
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, with the Ag America, because this is like a big campaign. And
Yeah.
with the Ag America campaign, um, what was your role? You won the award for art direction?
For art direction, creative direction, however you want to put it, but it's basically designing what the overall direction of what we were going in for the photography and for the
Mm,
graphics. And for specifically Ag America at the time, we were trying to highlight the grit and grind of what they do, and we wanted to show the farmers in a very humanistic light. And I feel like
Mm,
myself and Dustin Prickett, who
yeah.
was a fantastic photographer, he gets all the credit for making that picture beautiful and capturing a beautiful moment. But when we started the conversation, we wanted to really highlight the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that go into what they do, and how Ag America is a supporter of their lives and a supporter of their vision and a supporter of what they do on a daily basis. So I had the honor of directing all that, but I can't take all the credit because everybody
No.
involved in that, from designers to photographers, did a great job. And I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity to direct it, for sure.
And this was a nationwide campaign. Like, this was a huge deal, if I recall correctly. And for those who don't know, Ag America is like the bank for farmers in the country. Like, I mean,
Right.
it's the go-to, and I'm sure there's other people in the space, but it's like it's top notch. Um, what was the biggest challenge, just out of curiosity, from a marketing, from a branding and visual perspective? What was the biggest visual challenge you had with that
Well,
thing?
Well, honestly, it was that they didn't have anything to start out with, which I think is a good challenge because we came in, we were able to fill that
Yeah,
with tons of content, with tons of. We just really started with a blank canvas we had to
yeah,
begin with, and again, I'm grateful to be able to fill that, and they've taken that and
sure.
moved forward in strides and continue to win awards.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest challenge was really that we had nowhere to start, man. We started from a blank canvas. We
Yeah,
started with a blank canvas, and we had an opportunity without any resistance. Everyone on board was super open to ideas and was super open to the creative process.
sure.
And we, I guess, what part of the problem was not having a direction. So
Yeah,
if we have a clear vision, that helps us as the designers to not throw darts at a board and expect one to stick. So that helps us refine that vision. So I guess part of the problem was not having a vision, and
yeah,
then being able to sit down and craft that out and collaborate in a way that we came up with a good
yeah.
product. So to answer your question,
Well,
yeah. So
I
we necessarily didn't have a vision; we created it.
and I'm willing to bet most people listening. Now, the reason I'm profiling this is because there's major contrast between that tier of client and my average small business client, the average viewer for this show. And the average viewer for this show, does not have the budget Ag America has for branding. But so it offers an interesting insight and contrast to the approaches, and to those watching. That's just I'm also wanting to make sure you're keying in on the value you're going to get out of John when we start doing this case study, and kind of what's going on with trends, because he does operate at that level. But just quick question on this: a lot of people imagine, John, I presume a lot of people imagine that it's like all art. When you do a project that has a budget like that, it's just art all the time, and you come in and you wow people with art. But I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I bet you that was almost more consultation and time with the client than it was even drawing, So, like, how
Yeah.
much design time to consultation time were you spending in a project like that?
Oh man, I feel like the majority was in strategy, and then we
Sure.
used the last 20% of time to go out into the field, because with that particular project, the creativity was in the photography we're taking, and then
Interesting.
the style and the aesthetic that the graphics we're using to kind of complement that.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to be too much, but. Um,
Sure.
I feel like we definitely spent a lot more times deciding on what the deliverables were going to be, because ultimately when I design, it's objective. We are designing against a specific purpose for the use of that logo or brochure or whatever in a specific application,
Yeah.
going to a specific audience, knowing who we're talking to, knowing that we're presenting this product or an essence of this product. So with this, it was with Ag America, it was more deciding on what that direction was, spending time crafting that out. And then
Yeah.
when we got onto the field, when I say specifically the field, we went out to North Carolina, we spent time
Oh,
in Georgia, we spent out in time in different parts of Florida, at farms here locally. And that's where we had fun. That's where we
yeah,
were
that's
able
where we
to.
had fun. And you know that the people don't realize this. That points to the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the work gets 80% of the results. But the truth is, though, the 80% of grueling grind, consultation, extrapolation, and planning, that's actually what allows for that 20% to be so rich, at least in your case. Real
Exactly.
quick,
And really,
boom.
yeah, I just saw Dave pop in too.
So here's Dave Pappas. He says he only gets to have design fun all the time when he works with me. Dave Pappas, for those who don't know, is another very high tier graphic designer who we're honored to have. He moved down from Brooklyn a few years
Yeah,
ago, and he's
you
just
know
been a
what? I
good
love
add-on. And
Dave. I
yeah,
love
and
Dave.
John
He
and I
is.
have loved working with Dave in different capacities. But for those who don't know, check out Dave Pappas or what is his website? Dave Pappas Creative Studios or whatever it is.
I
And he
believe
does some
so. Yeah,
super high level stuff. So good afternoon, Dave. So
yeah.
let's talk about this real quick. Talk to me about marketing, or I'm sorry, brand trends. You know,
Yeah.
it used to be you came up with a brand and like they ideated it, maybe it evolved a little bit, but these brands were like evergreen, or at least that's our perception. But I feel like you have to brush up your logo. We're brushing up the Spark Sites logo. I feel like you have to
Right.
brush that logo up like every 18 to 24 months. Are you finding that's accurate, or am I just
Yeah.
hyperventilating?
I mean, 18 to 24 months seems pretty quick. I would say 3 to 5 years is
Oh,
what you want to stay in. I mean, because you want your logo to be as simple of an iteration that can be timeless over a long
mhm.
period, so that you're not having to spend so much money changing things out. And people have
Yeah.
signage and that they put a huge investment into. But nowadays, what I'm seeing, there's a lot of different trends out there that are happening, but some of the top trends that are going on have to do with how many channels are available now to us via social media,
Oh my gosh.
with Facebook, with TikTok, with
So many.
Instagram, yeah, so many. Your logo has to be adaptable. One of the top trends right now is adaptability. Your logo has to fit all of those channels in a way that best represents you in a succinct, cohesive way. But then also, some brands are experimenting with shapes and interlockings that that give the logo different options. So a family of icons that are part of the same brand, that still represent the same thing, that still represent the same values, but ultimately can be mixed around either on a horizontal bias, a stacked lockup, or different options that will give kind of a wider range possibilities for your logo, because a one fit all approach to the logo is outdated. There isn't a brand that should just operate on one mark. There should be a word mark, a primary word mark. There should be an icon that you can lean on, and there should be a word mark icon stack that should be the basis of any strong and successful
Let's
brand.
unpack that real quick a little bit for the viewers because
Mhm.
uh, this is all new terminologies. We've touched
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it a
yeah.
little bit, but for the average small business person, so let's unpack this a little bit. So most people's paradigm is this is my I have a logo. For example, the State of the Spark logo, and
Hmm.
it's an immutable logo. But we're talking about this term adaptable, and and maybe different arrangements of the elements. You said a lockup.
Right.
So I think what you're saying with adaptable logos is the what we're trying to make people think and feel and remember about our brand needs to be noticeable from all of these different angles. So why do they call that an adaptable logo? Why don't they just call that a brand?
Well, because the actual visual representation of the logo changes. So it could either be spread out in a horizontal bias, or it could literally be stacked, the stacked over top of each other. It's
Okay.
really based on the application. It's based on where that logo is going to fit. And more
Gotcha.
times than not, I've found companies where, and then speaking of one of the companies that we're going to talk about later, Take Heart was a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
example. In that one of the challenges was is that their logo didn't fit in every application, from their signage that again had a more of a horizontal bias to a small icon as their logo, as their social media avatar. So
Hmm.
being adaptable is allowing your logo to have different versions of itself that still resonate, that still connect to the original primary logo that you're leaning on, but gives you flexibility to be able to use that in different cases.
So, like when someone's out buying a logo and they say, I want an adaptable logo, they're basically saying, I just want different arrangements of my main icon, my text, and my colors.
Correct. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so then, like, I mean, is there always a primary or is it always conceptual? It's kind of abstracted the way you described it, you know? I mean, so
Well,
is it always like there's always a primary or is there like just, hey, we want people to feel this way and you can juggle these components in any way that fits?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, honestly, because I feel like
Okay.
there should always be a primary logo that you lean on, um, from a practical standpoint, so that you're not spending so much money managing different marks. So you want to
Sure.
lean on one particular mark that fits in a square, ideally. You know, that's asymmetrical, that has balance, that
Mm-hmm.
has contrast, that has all the things that principles of design uh, teach us. But at the same time, uh, you need to be able to have secondary and tertiary marks that complement that mark, but then in a way that, kind of to your point, is an impression of who they are, and not
Yeah.
a direct representation of their service and their product.
Yeah.
Be-
Well, and
Because
because
your
the point,
logo,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, because your logo should be that impression. Your brand should be that impression of who you are, and not tell the whole story. Your
Yeah.
your logo is something that should be memorable, and not necessarily say everything at the front gate. You want people to have investment in knowing more about
Interesting.
you. You want, as an artist creating an art piece, I want 60% of that interpretation to be made by the viewer. I want them to be invested in what they're
Interesting.
viewing, so that they have interest more, and so that we're not telling the whole story of what they are, at the gate.
Interesting. Interesting. So, well, I mean, for a lot of businesses, and I think you were going here, so I'll tee this up in a quick second and contextualize
Mhm.
this. A lot of small businesses, a lot of my average clients, um, they might be recognizable from a logo perspective. Their logo might be recognizable from a neighborhood or city perspective, but outside the city, no one's going to recognize their logo. The point of historically, the point of a logo is so that when someone sees the logo, they're triggered. And like Pavlovian dog, you kind of know that's whoever, and they do X. And therefore, you're trying to get people, hey, when I think websites, I think Spark sites. When I think whatever, when I think design, I think Sierra Creative.
Right.
That's
It's a
the
point of
point of a.
distinction.
So I think you were getting at this with geometries because I think you talked about branding without branding. Could you get into what branding without branding is for the sake of contrasting to the average small
Okay.
business?
Right.
Like, what
So
is branding
there's a
without
trend.
branding?
So there's a trend now, and Doritos was the one to kind of cue it up. They put out a Super Bowl ad that was a Doritos ad without their logo. So it was a commercial without a logo. And what they did was they used visuals of fire and zest and all kind of things to kind of wake up the senses of that product, to remind you this is who we are, but we can say it without saying it. And it was really clever, really creative. And I think most companies, I would gather, can't do that in the same way because of the brand equity that a Doritos company and a large corporation like that has. But what I do think is that small businesses and other companies could tee off from that using that in a way to create. If there was
Oh,
a
interesting.
way to create a brand that had a product that everybody we could pose in a different way using nuanced visuals, just using things that stimulated the senses, colors that stimulate emotion, and not necessarily an icon. Because yes,
Interesting.
to your point, logos, icons all use Pavlovian theory, classical conditioning, but at the same time, so do colors, so do
Yeah,
visuals, so do pictures, so do smells. So I mean, all those
sure.
things are a part of the brand experience. I mean, you walk
Yeah,
into a Starbucks and you know it's Starbucks because it smells
yeah.
like coffee, and you can automatically experience the brand from the smell alone. But
You used a term
I
just now.
to
You used a term just now, and it was brand equity. Could you say that in
mhm.
layperson's terms?
Yeah, so brand equity is basically what you've established in your brand from the onset. So if you have some years of experience, if you have a decade in that one particular industry, if you have a decade where your clients set, your equity is how much you have um, done to draw awareness with your clients. Your equity is how much they know about you as a brand, how much
Yeah.
value your customer has in you as a brand, how long have you been around,
Uh, so
the
just how popular
the
you
the,
are,
the
how known you
yeah,
are.
yeah, exactly, basically,
And then so
absolutely,
for a brand to be able to come around like Doritos and use triangles, or you use the term zest. If I recall this commercial you're talking about, um, it evoked the idea of ranch. And
yeah,
it's almost like
yeah,
taking the idea of the what do they say? Um, hey, FedEx it, right? That FedEx now
uh-huh.
owns this idea of shipping, right? So they're not just FedEx, let me take it to FedEx and let me take it to DHL. Now they start to own the concept of shipping anything in general. When someone says, hey, FedEx it, it's almost like Doritos took this to the next level of, hey, not only when I think triangles, especially yellow triangles, do you think Doritos? When I think ranch, I think Doritos. And it's almost like they're programming you outside of even the realm of food. Like it's like next level. That's interesting. So this is
Yeah,
a
no, it
trend
really,
going on,
yeah.
but why can't small businesses do it?
No, I don't think. I think it's application. I think it's small businesses may not find value in this because it takes a strong brand that's been established in
Yeah.
the consumer's eye to for them to know at a really rudimentary subconscious level.
Yeah.
That says a lot to how long they've been established. But a way that possibly they can use that same trend in creating intrigue for their client to say, here's what we are, here's what we do, but in a way that leaves it open for interpretation. So it in a
Interesting.
practical sense, using pictures and colors as opposed to an icon that may create intrigue to say, oh, this looks interesting. Looks like this is what I need to solve my problem or to enhance my life. Let
Yeah.
me find out a little bit more about it because this looks interesting. This is something I
Interesting.
haven't seen before. And with it being so difficult to stand out
Yeah.
in the industries of today,
Yeah.
why not be the one that doesn't have a brand, that doesn't have a logo,
Interesting.
a direct primary logo? And this is coming from the logo designer. So for me,
Yeah.
that I have a lot invested in this particular direction, but I feel like I
Sure.
could also, in that same vein, the same challenge, could build a brand with just colors and visuals and a feeling, an impression, without drawing immediate connection to a logo.
Interesting. And so, like on this note, like people are here or jumping on the show or watching this later with several questions in mind, and of course they're petrified. Is my logo outdated? Does my logo look like trash? Is there something today that might have been design elements today of a logo that might have been absolutely like on point 2.5 years ago? But if someone showed you that logo, you know that they haven't touched their logo in a few years. Like, are there like colors or line styles or something that, or fonts that you're like, okay, that's
That's a good,
so 2020.
that's a good that's a great question because yeah, to your point, there are trends that last shorter than others. Yeah, it's
Sure.
similar to fashion and anything like that. That it start with your bigger corporations and kind of work its way down into
Sure.
ending up at the nearest thrift store. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
kind of funnels its way down from the top 2% and then works its way to the rest of the world. And I guess the most telling is if it's stuck in an aesthetic or a style that has gone on, that has passed on. To your point, if it's something that's a
Sure.
2010 deal, or if everybody's doing Helvetica, or if everybody's doing
Helvetica. Fonts are a big one. Like
yeah.
I'd say 2.5, 3 years ago, we were using Texta as a font quite a bit. I think even this is Texta, but
Hmm.
modified.
Hmm.
Like it's customized. Eli Chinchilla did this design for our brand, but it needs to be updated. Not for any reason that she did. It's just time to kind of brush it up. And in terms of a body font, we've been looking at Poppins. That's the one we're looking at now. Fonts seem to come and go pretty quickly. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think so because they tend to be more thematic in some ways and more
Interesting.
stylistic. So there are a lot of very trendy fonts. I say the majority of typefaces out there are super trendy. The ones that I say would be timeless are the ones like Futura, Helvetica, Montserrat, Gotham, even Times New Roman are all
Yeah.
timeless fonts for sure.
Well, and we just, well, it's not a real comment too much, but Gian says hello. Just a viewer from YouTube. So I guess this leads to a question I've been thinking about lately. Why are like gradients are coming in, especially like 3-part and 4-part gradients are coming in crazy right now. What is
Mhm.
up with gradients? Why do you think, as an artist, as a designer, uh, this is so funny. This is how these live shows go. Can you say my name in the video? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna take a crack. So don't be offended because I'm gonna take a crack and I'm gonna make John do the same. I'm gonna say Gian Giotic.
Yeah,
Am I
I'm
saying
gonna
it
say GOT as
wrong?
well. Yeah,
Okay.
GOT. Yeah, that's what I'm
Thanks
gonna
for
say.
giving us grace on trying to say your name correctly. But no, back to the question. Like, why are
You know what?
3-part? Go ahead.
Yeah. You know what I think it is about gradients? With logo design, the gradients are kind of going away
Are
because
they?
more logos. Well, for logos, not the
Okay.
brands. For logo design, because everybody's trying to go simple, flat,
Interesting.
clean. Uh, because our consumers don't have time for all the details. They don't have time for intricate logo marks and
Yeah.
intricate color palettes.
Sure.
But what I do see and their supporting elements, whether it be on their website backgrounds or whether it be on social media backgrounds, any of their print work, anything like that, I do see a rise of gradients, and I think it's because of our screen resolution. I think it's technology. As technology is getting
Interesting.
better at providing clear, crisp visuals, then we're gonna kind of still push the envelope on how much we can get out of that. How much
Yeah.
visual stimulation can we
Yeah.
get from using that crisp, clear visuals that we get now, just even on our phones.
Yeah.
It's become that easy. So that's where I think that it's coming from.
Well, and I also think like I think it's twofold, honestly. I mean, Instagram obviously pioneered it, but or I said popularized it. I'll say popularized it when Instagram's logo started doing its thing and people were digging that. I will also say I think something that's contributed in a major way are filters, social media filters. They created this kind of like, why do these Instagram photos feel so alluring? And yes, half naked guys or gals on screens are alluring, but the filters were doing something unique. And I think as people started looking at the filters, they had these like pseudo photography elements, like bright spots and low spots on these, kind of like that kind of created this almost like SoCal feel. And I think as people looked at
Mm,
that and then they looked at Instagram,
mhm.
they started seeing, okay, there's some, it's both warm and cool. And I feel a lot. I feel something when I see these gradients. And on top of that, 90s retro is now coming with because of TikTok,
Oh,
90s
absolutely.
retro with
Yeah, that's a
a
good segue.
vengeance. And so there's this
Yeah.
stimulation. So I think the screen resolution is allowing for it. Like it's allowing for us to get a lot of vibrance out of
Mhm.
coloration. I mean, think
Yeah.
about YouTube videos. I don't have it here and I should, but like there'll be like a green backlight here and like a purple backlight here. And it's a hunger to create this stimulation, I think. And so, but I've been projecting that that's all on logos. But you're saying no, the logo itself is simplicity, but the
Yeah.
brand at large is seeing this. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
But you know
that's
where I'm
that's
seeing this
what I've seen.
technologically? What'd you say?
No, I said that's what my experience has been.
Technologically on websites, we're seeing the need for speed, site speed. And so logos are one of the top thing to pop up. And now that you're saying it, I have noticed that there's a lot of white space on web pages right now. The logo might have a little bit of flair, but like they're trying to load that page as fast as possible. So check out, boom, here we go. Jessica Ojeda. Jessica Ojeda is a friend. She moved to Colorado recently, fairly recently. She's living the Colorado life. She says, I'm here as well. Great topic today. I do my own design for my business, and I'm digging this episode interview topic. Thanks, gentlemen, for your time and sharing your knowledge. Jessica, if you have any questions, John's the guy to talk to. So if you have any
Yeah,
questions
thanks
while
for
you're
reaching
watching,
out.
what'd you say?
Yeah, I said thanks for reaching out, Jessica. Definitely
Yeah, man,
hit me up.
she's here.
Need
And
help.
then Billy, my guy Billy Weigel, he just always comes on. Gratitude. He's a regular. Both of them are regulars when I do the morning show, which I missed on Monday. So they're bopping in. Good afternoon, Billy. I hope you're doing great. If you have any design questions, please ask. We'll get them answered. So on this, we've got a few trends. Let me just ask this, and then we're actually going to get into the case study. Let's talk briefly about clients.
Mhm.
What do you wish the viewers, being small business owners who might be shopping their own logo, their own brand, as a designer, man, what is the one thing you absolutely wish, cross your fingers, hope to die, that every client showed up with something or some paradigm or some frame of mind when they were doing their logo? What do you just an ideal client, if they bring this, they're probably going to be an ideal client. What is that thing?
I think one is an open mind.
Mm,
Uh,
mhm.
because in the design process, we might find other solutions that can solve the problem that we're addressing from the design.
Yeah,
Because for everything design wise is objective. So um,
yeah,
coming into the equation with an open mind that I if my client comes with a vision and a target and they have an idea of what they want to go to, being open to other possibilities, to exploring the potential of um, visualizing it differently than maybe what they
mm,
first came in with.
interesting.
It definitely does help on both sides of the coin to
Yeah,
have a vision, to have a idea of what you want your company to look like and your brand to look like moving forward. Um,
yeah,
but but the rigidness and the having a uh, inability to see past what one solution may be, being open
yeah,
to other solutions is really what it comes down to.
yeah,
And
and
being open
and then being able
to
to get into your
the
head.
yeah, exactly. Right, exactly, and
Yeah,
allowing me to get in their head because part of my job is getting into who they are as a business owner and who they are leading this company to be, who they visualize themselves as,
yeah,
finding out who they're speaking to, and then
yeah,
connecting them. So becoming the brand. This is what
yeah.
I love. Why I love what I do is that for every industry, for every company that I work with, I become that industry. I take on
Oh
that hat.
man.
You know, I've
And
I've
I'll
been a
testify to
been
that.
a
Not
farmer.
every designer does that as well as you do it. Like you have
Uh,
the, I was talking to another designer, and they're a great designer, And we were talking, and I mentioned you. I said, we love working with John. And they said, what is it about? They were a learner. And they said, what is it you love working about John? I said, listen, I don't even know technically if John's the best designer I know. But I will tell you, John is the best listener I've ever met when it comes to clients. Like, I'll see John at our co-working space, and when he's talking to a client, he is locked in. And I just feel like he's sucking their energy and like putting it into your pores. And then that comes out in your designs. And what I don't take that the wrong way when I say I don't know if you're the best designer ever, but being the best listener ever, you have the happiest clients I've ever met. Like, the
Yeah,
clients are like, dude, I talked to, what'd you say?
yeah, I just saw Dave Pappas ring in, and he said that he's a method designer.
He's a method designer, like a method actor. Dave Pappas. He's a method designer. I like that.
It's
Let's answer
true
a quick
though.
question.
It's true. Yeah, go ahead.
So Billy Weigel says, what are your thoughts on using company names and logos that specify what they do versus not? I have no knowledge and suck and would like to hear from someone intelligent. What are your thoughts on using company names in logos
Yeah.
that specify what they do versus not? What do you think?
Well, I think it is important that you do start the conversation about what we do, because people are trying to get from point A to point B and service on their need as quickly as possible nowadays.
Mm,
So while I think that the service should be sub to the brand, I think that it isn't the main tell all of the story. It shouldn't be the headline. When we're thinking of logo hierarchy, the service, what you do, my opinion, should be a subline to what the primary name or impression that you're trying to indue on your audience, or introduce, or make your audience be aware of.
yeah.
So I think it is important, for example, if you have a nail salon, that that it's a nail salon. So if it's Integra Nails, or whatever it is, that the name represents something that makes you special,
Yeah.
in highlighting your personality, highlighting something
Yeah.
special that you do. But then, yes, I do believe that it is necessary to have at least a subject line of what you do, so that people understand it, walk away with at least how you're going to impact their lives.
Yeah. And from a messaging perspective, and I really appreciate that, John. From a
Mhm.
messaging perspective, I would say it's like questions about, and I think John might echo this. Questions about logo are very contextual.
Mhm.
I mean, nearly everything in a business is, but we often feel like, okay, put like so and so's heating and air conditioning, and it's like, okay, if you're marketing the context, that might work. If the
Mhm.
context is we're doing a massive push on John Smith, the founder, and John Smith, the founder, has a very strong history in the community that they're serving, and he has a strong reputation, and the marketing for the next 12 to 24 months is all going to be this story of how mom and pop and approachable they are. But to contrast that, my actual AC guy is my also website client. His name's Jonathan Abraham. He's a young guy. He's an Indian American. He's phenomenal. His brand is Clear Springs, and it's like, okay, his name carries this effect, or
Mhm.
carries this, imbues this effect in you, Clear Springs, and it's a little bit of a differentiator of, okay, this guy's an AC and cooling. So I think that this could be a messaging. It triangulates. What's our messaging? What's going to be our marketing? And then to
Absolutely.
John's point, especially from the visuals, is this going to stand out if I throw a bunch of these business cards on someone's desk? And so
Yeah.
I think the context really matters. Anything else to add to that for Billy John?
No, no, no. I think unless you think we didn't answer the question, Billy, you're more than welcome to throw a follow-up question.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So let's actually take a look at a client that John brought to the table called Take Heart. And we're partly going to go over this, so you can see a little bit of how maybe a designer might look at a logo. But really, we're hoping that you can kind of marinate, the viewer can marinate and how primarily John, as a designer, views a logo, what it does in the viewer, and then what problem he's solving with the new logo. And we'll see what the updated brand is that he rolled out. How long ago did this rebrand come out? 3 months?
Probably 3 months ago. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say so.
So let me
Yeah, they've
bring up my
only.
screen real quick. Boom. So here we are. This is Take Heart. John, do you want to give us a little bit of intro of who this is and contextualize this older looking
Yeah.
theme?
Do you have the file with the logo types with the logo
I
marks?
do. You want me to bring that one
Yeah.
up?
Can you put up? Yeah. Let's start with that. Let's start with the first page.
Boom.
So to give you a little bit of background on Take Heart, they are a nonprofit company who they have a shop here in Lakeland. Check them out. They're over right next to Scout and Tag downtown.
Yep.
But they sell fair trade goods from
Yeah.
um, from their orphans and widows that they have in Africa. So what they do is that they work with widows and orphans in Africa, and what they do is they help them with becoming entrepreneurs. They have schools that they house the orphans that they work with. They have housing. They do so much in Kenya right now to
Yeah.
to to bring people on their feet, the opportunity to become an entrepreneur. And so they're selling a lot of these goods that are created from the entrepreneurs in Kenya in this shop. And again, in an effort to help the people in Kenya. So part of our challenge in this brand exercise was to create marks that not only represented the essence of who they are, because that was part of the problems, that this wasn't connecting at a really nuanced way of who they are, who they were trying to be moving forward.
Yeah.
Um, Even the small change and modification of going from capital T and capital H to going all lowercase, that was a move to be more take a more humble approach, take a more backseat approach in the buyer and the client's journey, so that they're aware that we ultimately, I say we, Take Heart, are allowing our donors to be part of this journey, and that we are the facilitators. So they took a back seat. So one of the changes we made was that we went from capital T, capital H, and then we lowercase that, brought that down. We also played with if you show up the second slide, we also played with a little bit of the texture. If you zoom in a little bit on the Take Heart, the primary logo to the left, the the actual letters have a little bit of texture in them. They're not like straight on. They have a little bit of roughness to them, along with the
Mm,
logo. It feels more real. It feels more um,
mm. Earthy.
warm and comforting. And we also played with the idea of the tree that's connected to the inspiration for the brand. So the tree was really, really critical.
Yeah. To the
In
client too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was core to how they wanted to represent themselves. It was core to the story that was Take Heart, and what inspired Take Heart.
Yeah.
Delta, who's the CEO of Take Heart, who's incredible. She's amazing to work with.
And her daughter
She
Heather is phenomenal to work with.
Oh yeah, yeah. I loved Heather, Emma, their whole team. They've been
Yeah.
awesome. Uh, so her story was her inspiration that happened underneath this tree in Africa. It was a baronite tree in Africa, and we spent a lot of time going back and forth on iterating on this particular tree. And I bring that up
Yeah.
because this is one of the problems. This is one of the challenges we had in development, because um, Delta was very hard pressed to find the tree that spoke to her experience the most.
Yes. Yeah. I
Now,
remember this.
in designing that, we found a tree that did speak to it the most, that almost looked like the identical tree, but just a silhouette of it.
Yeah.
But when we stepped back, it was very prickly. It had sharp edges to it. So it
Yes.
was of the options that we gave initially, it was the least attractive, it was the least welcoming, it was the least warm and friendly. And I bring up that point
Yeah.
that in that scenario, the context was the direction was from our CEO that it needed to feel like what her impression was. But then what we
Yeah.
forgot was that ultimately the consumer is going to develop their own meaning and endue their
Yes.
own meaning from the tree, regardless.
Yeah.
Even if they later found out what the tree represented, it's still it's still an iconic representation of that tree and of that experience, and didn't be a literal translation of what that tree looked like. We
This is
wanted it.
huge. This is huge. And I
Yeah,
want to catch that because hopefully clients or future clients of our own with Spark Sites or yours as designers are watching, this is the most challenging thing is to imbue in a client. This logo is not for you.
hmm
It's
right.
supposed to, you're supposed to love it. And we're going to sit here and work through this until you love it. But part of the openness, the open mindedness you were talking about is to remember that
hmm
you had an experience under this tree, but we can't transport this person to this tree. So we have to use the medium available to us to imbue how you're trying to help them feel too. And
Right.
you have to take my word for it. And this was the challenge that I had when I saw this old logo. I heard this story as well. And your point about capitals, that's formal and not warm. And the
hmm
fact that you lowercase them, I didn't even think about proposing lowercase in them. That itself makes it more of a phrase that people think about than this formal entity with capitals. So that alone was a massive shift. But this
hmm
too, when Delta would describe her experience, and we were even looking at photos, we found a photo that was nearly exact. You remember when you came on, we had even put up a
Yeah.
photo that was
hmm
represented. But you're right. When I look at this, I think of that song about the rains in Africa, you know? And it's like,
Chicago.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Down the rain
And
down
it's
in
like
Africa.
emotional. What'd you say?
I said I was just started singing.
Yeah. But it's like it's emotional, but it's kind of aloof and distant. It is adventurous in feel, but you're right. It's prickly. It's not doing anything.
Mhm.
And then when you jump down here, you're like, warm, friendly. I could hug this tree. That's
Right.
exactly it. You know, that's
Right.
huge.
For sure.
So
For another.
this is huge. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, no. I was
No,
just
go
going to
ahead.
talk about just another point. If you want me to move on to the next
Go
point.
ahead, please.
Okay. So one of the other things that we had challenges with in this process was finding the colors that best represent the brand
Mm-hmm.
and what they
Mm-hmm.
envisioned for the brand, specifically with Delta and what she was envisioning. And one of the things that I want to remind any small business and who's designing and developing all these things for themselves is to keep in mind that that color is a variable that is really hard to control, and
Yes.
especially nowadays with screens being all different, with printers being different across the spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
with even to the point of using the same printer every single time.
Yes.
At some point, one
Yeah.
run is going to be off, because even
Yeah.
if the replacing of ink barrels and ink cartridges, all that kind of stuff, that affects the ultimate color.
Yes.
So it's really, really important that brands find the color that they're happiest the most on the most screens and the most print variables as possible, and just be okay with that.
And be
Unfortunately,
okay.
and
Yeah.
just be okay with that, seriously,
Yeah. Yeah.
because when it's a variable that we can't ultimately have 100% control over, then
Yeah.
why stress about it? Then why make it an obstacle? Why give it more attention than what it needs to be? Even though I completely understand that a brand's color should be cohesive and consistent across the board. I am a
Yes.
proponent of that. I push that in my brand strategy.
Yeah.
But the challenge we had with this particular exercise is that we were locked on finding an orange, finding a color
I
that
remember this. Yeah.
that was good on as many screens
Yeah.
as we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
And we tested on printers and Catapult. We tested printers with them and in their home printers to make sure. And we put all those and laid those out, and we found a color that met at least the cohesion and was kind of the balanced
That's big.
we could find in the whole thing.
That's big. I remember this for those who don't know, like we did a whole round of design for the website before John came on and helped them focus on their brand.
Yeah.
And this color, and I don't even know what to call this color, but this color was of the utmost importance for a
Yeah.
long time. And we even sat down once and showed two different computer screens with the exact same code color,
Yep.
and the colors were vastly different. And so sometimes design, like I said, isn't about necessarily the best designer. This is a testament to John's ability, John, your ability to work with the client and communicate and connect with them. You took as long as it took to connect with Delta and help her. Also with an exercise. I mean, you had an exercise where she could see
Yeah.
a good color, maybe not the perfect color, but a good color that she was also happy with. And
Yeah.
that's just a testament to your skill. That's
I
a
appreciate that.
primary skill for design. And that's hearing the client, man. That's huge.
Yeah, and it definitely was challenging because in design we all as designers we use Pantone books to kind of
Yeah.
keep consistency across the board. But even at that,
Yeah.
printers can't maintain the same color across the board. Even just
Yeah.
using one, like I said, specific printer over time is going to have variations in color, especially with the color that we were using that was like a terracotta clay orange.
Yeah.
Orange is such a hard. Anything orange and red is those are really hard colors to maintain for a long time and across the spectrum of print and
Yeah.
digital, because print has such a hard time printing a really true red. Digital,
Yeah.
easy. We can get that across the board in multiple spectrums, but in print, it's really hard to manage that color too. So we were coming against really different opposition, but ultimately we after extensive rounds of revisions and like you said, meeting and looking at specifically, here are three different screens, here's what it looks like, here's what it looks like printed on the copier here at Catapult, and here's what it looks
Yeah.
like printed on your home copier, and let's find out what that happy medium is,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can move forward and it's not a stumbling block anymore. And then since
Yeah.
then they've had a lot of success, and then
Yes.
also have been okay when it's off a shade. They've been okay with that,
Yeah.
because now they know that in the future that's what they have to expect, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, but it's because we don't have control of those variables
Yeah.
ultimately.
But that also attests to part of design is not only receiving the client, but educating them.
Oh yeah.
And because and I find every small business owner falls in love with their brand. They fall
Mhm.
in love with their look and feel. They never want it to change. And in their mind, it's immutable. Well, maybe if you're Doritos, you're immutable and you can just use triangles, right? But
Mhm.
the rest of us, like we do need to stay relevant until we're fixed in our target market's minds.
Yeah.
And that was what was going on with Tech Heart. They were ready to take the next level. And they wanted to make sure that they were integrating their brand in their store with their website, with their print media, and kind of like integrating all of that, but it wasn't coming through. And I think you really nailed it. Can we look at their websites side by side?
Go ahead. Yeah, pull it up.
So John and I were talking about this on the call, and this is what we pulled from an old site. Now, this doesn't have the orange logo, but this was the iteration just before this one. And we can talk about visual design in a second, but for now, we're just talking about logo. And you've got this prickly thing. You've got this ice cold blue. You've got a
Yeah,
gray tone.
that had no
What'd you say?
connection, that the blue that had no connection to what
we're
what was
saying.
actually going on the ground level in Kenya. It had no connection to kind of the earthy tones and organic tones that were prevalent in that area. It was more used for what is it? Showing a foundation of consistency of because blue is very calming. Blue is very giving
Yes.
a very calm, easy vibe of
Yes.
assurance, confidence, foundation. Even water it evokes as well. But to
Yeah.
me, it wasn't evoking the right feeling. It wasn't connecting to the right value or even
Yeah.
essence of who they were.
Well, and to their credit, like in 2020, there was a trend for those who don't know from design. There was a trend in nonprofit work, trend that was kicked off by Tom Shoes and their foot and
Oh, yeah.
their shoe drops, charity water. Like these all have blue, and the main reason is to your point, John. Blue had really developed this reputation of trust, and when it came to
Mhm.
donations and trust, and like you said, calming, we wanted to let people know visually, hey, we're calming. And that's, I believe, where this blue came from. Um, and then you had the
Mhm.
blue there,
Yeah.
and it's kind of all over. And I'm sure in 2020, when this design was being used, it was accomplishing its goal. But very quickly, I think Delta realized, and her team, and Heather and the whole crew, that they wanted to relay more than just trust. They wanted to imbue in people the ability to take heart. So let's look at your design rolled out on the website. Let's take a look. Boom. Man, this was obviously like night and day. This almost looks like a prison now in contrast
Mm,
compared to
that's a good point.
this. And I love the smiles. I love this is a big
Yeah.
trend in
I just
design. Can you speak to smiles at all? Are you seeing this on with some of your clients?
well, yeah, yeah. At a rudimentary level, smile make you smile. You see
Yeah,
the
yeah,
smile
yeah.
and you feel that energy.
Yes.
So what better way to connect with humanity because mormons are are trying to be more real relative and connect at a real grassroots level. So what better way than to highlight with smiles
Yeah.
and really welcoming faces.
Well, and in the influencer world, well, in the web design world at large, we're realizing nothing gets people to stay on a page like someone smiling. And if you're in the services or in the nonprofit industries, you could be in the tech industry with like a software or app and have a website and a logo that doesn't really evoke anything like these sorts of smiles. It could indicate fun or efficiency. But as it comes to nonprofit and service industries, if you have a website, the one thing I want you to do, or a brand, look at your brand and tell us if real people, not stock photography, if real people are smiling. And if they're not, man, go talk to your brand person or your web developer because it's got to happen. The other thing your brand does is this. You called out this was the orangish red that you all landed on right here. Boom. This is what's awesome. For some reason, the main call to action in all of their material is to donate. For some reason, even though there's no color here but the blue, that should provide all the contrast you need to jump over here and donate. For some reason, with all of this color, that color you landed on makes that donate button, that call to action, stand out in a way that
Right.
wasn't before. I think it's phenomenal. What other elements did you want to bring out on this design that, because you designed this page, we didn't design this, you designed this. What other elements on this page or
Mm-hmm.
this in this brand overhaul did you extrapolate into this
Yeah.
page?
Well, one, if on the header specifically, bringing in Delta as the owner and making the company feel human was really important. Showing her working with her team, showing everyone that she is working with as an equal,
Yeah.
and not that they are that they're being serviced or anything like that, but that they are just as important as the people that are working for the company and working for the organization. Um, so it was to that point extremely important to show who the leader was, who is charging this, but then also who we're affecting change wise. That was really important to
Yeah.
show the students, to show the entrepreneurs, to show the widows, to show the orphans, and really give opportunity for people to see where they're investing. What is it that where is it that their money's going? Especially in a world today where people aren't trusting nonprofits as much anymore because
Yes.
we've
Yes.
seen so much wrong done with monies being inappropriately used and funneled in different directions. Take heart, they give everything back, and I don't know what the specific percentage is according to their records, but they make it a point that they give everything back that comes in
Yeah.
from the store goes directly back to helping entrepreneurs and women and widows and orphans in Kenya directly, and that's what we really wanted to highlight is
Yeah.
telling their story, and allowing the viewer to be the hero in the whole story.
Well, yeah, and this is a prime visual of partnership here, and this trend is ended, and if you're still doing it, it will end you, and that is selling poverty, selling despair,
Ah,
and not that
that's a
necessarily
beautiful
Take
point.
Heart is the
That's just
worst at this because they talk about making a difference, but a lot of people in the nonprofit space they are selling poverty, and I'm not necessarily in alignment that that's a good use of visual
right.
imagery. Instead, hey, let's talk about the partnering, the very real impact we're making
Yeah,
together. Because it's a better story, but to your point too, the public is not tolerating the sale of poverty as a motivator, the shame involved
yeah.
with that. But
That's a
instead,
great
hey, partnership is good work being done, man. That's great.
point. Hmm.
That's great. What we do together, this is great verbiage. Did you actually write that phrase as well?
No, part it was mostly Heather that wrote a lot of the copy, and we kind of put it all together, with creating it and tweaking it and doing all that together.
That's great. And then obviously featuring the people being affected right across, or the people being served right
Right.
across. You did these custom elements too, though, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So part of the branding exercise for any website or brochure is having elements for copy, elements for frames around pictures,
Mm.
elements for bringing the aesthetic of the design and the brand a little bit more to life, and creating little small design elements that help the continuity of the story.
And I want to call this out. You made a point on this logo or in this moment how prickly this
Hmm.
was,
Hmm.
and then your new color that you've added. You've made a friendlier tree that's less
Hmm.
prickly. And
Hmm.
I just looked right here. I thought, oh, they snuck the old logo in, but I was like, no, that's your
Hmm.
tree.
Hmm.
That's your tree right there. It's soft. It's so this is where you have a adaptable logo as you were talking about earlier,
Right,
where they're
right, right.
dropping it as a design element, but it's still reinforcing the subconscious rhetoric you're putting into it there.
Right,
That's
and even
interesting.
at even at the smallest iconic level, it still
Yeah,
reads same tree.
that's
That you.
fantastic. And then there's the tree right there as well. And then your lowercase kind of still comes out. The intent of the lowercase even comes out in how we're displaying email addresses. This is huge. So let's do this real quick. Let's boom. Where would we leave off here? So, what are some parting thoughts that you really, if for small business owners watching, what are some takeaway actions they can do
Mhm.
as they're thinking about their logo, thinking about their brand? They know they haven't touched it in a while. They might not have the budget that
Yeah,
some of these people might have. What are some things they should be thinking about?
yeah.
One or
I
two
think
things they should be. Go ahead.
I think that three things that are really easy tricks to clean up your brand without, like you said, having to go hire out for it or do anything crazy with it. One is that legibility is super
Legibility.
vital for your brand. Legibility in the typeface. I think brands from what I've experienced tend to lean on styles and things that may be super artistic, and this is coming from the artist, super creative and super on trend and super stylistic, but then you don't know what the company is because you
What
can't
they
read it.
do.
You
Yeah.
can't read it. So keeping legibility as a primary objective, making sure that your customer ultimately knows what you're doing because they know how to read it and it's not too complicated. That is a really easy trick to clean up your logo. Another is hierarchy, coming up with a defined way of laying out your logo and your word mark being the primary emphasis, and
Mm,
your subtext or your icon mark be sub to that, to come under the umbrella of a specific direction of emphasis. Am I wanting the viewer to see the word mark first? Am I wanting them to see the icon first? What is it that you're trying to say with the emphasis in your hierarchy? So I think that cleaning up that, either by tweaking the size of the word mark versus the subtext, or tweaking the weight, messing with the weight of the text, could
okay.
hierarchy as well.
Yeah.
Then that kind of segues to my third point in contrast,
Ah,
making sure that there is contrast between your icon and your word mark, so that they each have their own visual representation. They each have their own meaning and definition, but it's enough that they help celebrate each other, so that there's
interesting.
balance. So there's balance in the design, so that the weight is distributed evenly. But yeah,
Yeah,
those are things that I think are the easiest ways to kind of tweak things, making sure it's legible, making sure the hierarchy is sound, and making sure that the contrast is strong, and that you have a really
that's huge.
defined idea.
That's huge, man. Well, man, I cannot thank you enough for coming out. Where can people follow you? Where are you at?
So on Instagram, Facebook, it's at John Sierra, JONSIERRA. You can also find me at johnsierra.com, or sierracreativegroup.com.
Oh,
Check there. Yeah, and that's it. That's where you can find me.
man. Well, thank you for coming on. Do stick around. I'll wrap up real quick. So stick around real quick with me if you don't mind. So thank you so much, John, for being here. And thank you all for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit about marketing and messaging and seeing it through the lens of an award-winning designer like John, seeing how designers, whether it's a web designer or a top-notch graphic designer like John, how we actually look at logos, what we look for, what goes behind this, and hopefully you can elevate your messaging, your brand. Please do reach out to John. If you have any questions about your own design and are thinking about upgrading it, by all means, check him out at johnsierra.com or sierracreativegroup.com. But thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon, and keep in mind why we talk about any of this. Why are we talking about business? Why do we talk about financial freedom? Why do we talk about personal freedom? Because of the mission, folks. Remember the mission. Whenever we talk about State of the Spark, we're talking about igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day. Thanks so much.